What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And real quick housekeeping, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Or if you're watching us on Rumble, hit the subscribe and follow button there. Or whatever podcast platform you're using to listen, please hit follow. It helps us with our algorithm and builds up our numbers, and we really appreciate it. Today, I am joined here by fellow veteran, a really good friend, a brother in Christ, my friend Randy Stevenson. How you doing, Randy?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to being a part of kind of sharing, about our journey, my journey in the military and life.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this too before we went on. The because we had talked about that deployment that we were on together, but not even running into each other, not even realize we were at the same base and the same institutions during that deployment. But the name for this podcast actually came from that deployment.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
I had a senior chief that every time I was in doing intel and security stuff with the administration or whatever, so to speak, and I just hated being tied down in the office. So I liked trying to get out as much as possible. So I weasel my way in with my CO or XO or, escort missions or stuff like that to get off base. And they just kind of quit fighting it after a while. They just knew that I was going to get off base and do something as long as I was serving a purpose with them. And so my senior chief would be like, "So what's today's boondoggle, Bailey?" I had something planned to get out of the office and into the field,
I remember them days for sure.
But usually when I have somebody on for the first time, I like to get a little background. So originally, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So, again, thank you for the opportunity. But, early in my life, because of the environment that I was living in, to be honest, I wanted to be a lawyer when I was growing up because I felt like, being a lawyer would give me an opportunity to help people. So I thought it would be a good profession growing up.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, when did you feel that calling to serve your country?
So, our people's military journeys are, different for every person, just like deployments. But for me, I felt, a sense of serving the country in the beginning for opportunity. I grew up in an urban environment. On Hough Avenue, 93rd and Hough is the actual location in Cleveland, Ohio, and it was really a bad environment. If you were to go online and search up the area, it was right after what they call the Hough Riots, and they had burnt down the whole community from riots, and then they never went back and fixed up the place, and it was just we were living in vacant lots, burnt down buildings, and projects. So the military for me was a way to get out of that environment, and it provided an opportunity with education. It provided an opportunity with growth and leadership. So it catapulted me to, as we continue to talk and share about, where I am today and how it's helped me. It helped me get out of that environment. And later it turned into what I currently do now, which you'll hear about as we talk more at Stevenson's quote about patriotism, that it's something that's lifelong, and it's not no longer a calling. It's a vocation. It's something I'm gonna do until I die.
Nice. And then we talked a little bit about this before coming on, but like some of the oddest things that you experienced during your time serving.
Yeah. So, in the military, and I kind of gave Bill the disclaimer about, my military service and things. And I said, I was no Audie Murphy and I was no Gomer Powell, right? So I had a good military career. I think it totaled about 10 years and some change, from active, reserve guard, starting off at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and obviously Middle East tours and then we're actually 2 deployments, and then Italy. So I got to see a lot. So some of the moments of grab ass is what we call it in the military. Just kind of being in the hooch, joking around, was, playing pranks on people from, shaving cream and boots, Vaseline and hats. We love taking a porta potty. And if it was on a gun line, because one of my jobs was, besides like an infantry type role, was artillery and on housers. And we would put people in the porta potties and put them on a gun line and put a Humvee in front of it. And I'm telling you, when those 155 rounds come out, a lot of blue water comes up too. Good times, man. Good times.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And then, without breaking OPSEC, like what would you say was one of the worst places that you served?
So I would say, just kind of Middle East, like, Iraq, different, it was just a difficult environment. And believe it or not, for me, my experience in Kuwait during the year I was there was a difficult time for me because of the severity of what I was doing when I was in the military, which was operations intelligence on the physical security side at a logistical place that was really just moving a lot of pieces up north. So, up north was rough, obviously, because, you go through a lot. But I didn't expect just some of the things when I thought I was basically in a fob, relaxing, and it turned
Yeah.
out to be something else.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember that too. Like everybody's like, "Oh, Kuwait, it wasn't that bad." Come on, I was like, "Man, if you knew what was going
Right.
on in that area, it wasn't
Yeah.
the Four Seasons or nothing. There was like, especially when I think it was like Ramadan we were there, and all
Yeah.
the tents were like pitched outside, and it was like, I
Yeah.
don't think everybody's here to pray, when we were going
No.
on and off base, but
Yeah.
that's a whole nother.
And it was during a drawdown. I think people don't, understand that too. Is people are being pushed out, and a lot of people use that area for, like you said, as a cover for Ramadan. For it was a major intel threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what was like one of the best places that you served at?
I mean, obviously, Italy, in Vicenza, Italy, alongside the 173rd Airborne Brigade, was just awesome. Italy itself is awesome. The unit itself is a little bit more difficult, right? Because that's like airborne and infantry, and it's like a lot of grunt work. But the experience of being in Italy allowed for doors to open to go to Slovenia and Croatia, and once you're in Europe, you can hop on a train and just go about anywhere.
Yeah.
So that, I think I was blessed to have just that time in my life to be there.
Nice. And then, what's like a pet peeve? Would you say you have towards civilians since transitioning out of the military?
So I would say, one of the things, obviously in this type of setting, maybe you'll share about military services, what you've done briefly, just to give background. But I think, I remember coming home and people asking me, like, have you killed someone? Right. And working in higher education as a military advocate, that was one of the things that I had to brief staff about, was just understanding your audience. So, things like asking what we did in the military from a non-veteran is like huge for me. Having assumptions, like we just talked about, hey, well, you didn't stay, you wasn't in Iraq though, yeah, I'm grateful for the experience, but it left some residuals. But just don't assume just because a person is at Fort Seal or Fort Benning or something like that they didn't experience. With some, everybody's military service is different. So I
Yeah.
think some people, civilians, just have this: if you didn't do combat time, no. I'm an advocate, and I believe everybody's service is different. So those are probably the two pet peeves for me.
Yeah, gotcha. I agree. And then, what's is something that you will always carry with you from your time of service?
So I think for me, you know, um, it's probably going to boil down to, um, I like to use the quote: "Life is not, what happens to you; is how you respond." So it taught me about working on the fly, and you have to learn how to improvise, adapt, and overcome. So I think that's something that no matter what sector I'm working in, either private or government, that it has benefited me in so many ways to adapt, take care of soldiers, being in the army, no matter what. And I apply that today, and no matter what I'm doing, it's always about how can I help people.
Yeah, gotcha. What's one of the funniest stories you feel you can share from your time in service?
So, time in service, I got a lot of them, but one of the ones that I like to share with people, and there's a lot of them, but this one's funny to me because I was early in my career, and I just, I was a smoking gun. I was a real, you start wearing berets and all that. You start getting prideful. But I remember, being in artillery, and I was a gun chief, and on a Hauser, and I was only in my early 20s, and so we're doing this fire mission, and it was a expend all rounds mission. So you would shoot alarms up and HEs below, and we were just destroying on the other end, still on target. So we had a hot tube where basically you pull to shoot the round, and it doesn't pop off. The primer doesn't pop. So as I was going through those steps of code 2, hop 2 procedures, the hot 2 procedures, I remember it was an E7, which is a chief in the Navy, but in the Army it's we call it a gunny on a gun line, smoke. So I had to, they stopped the gun line. It was probably about 5 Hausers that were out there, and so he comes in the gun. I said, "Hey, Sergeant Studio named Johnny, Sergeant Johnny, Sergeant Smoke," and he's like, he says, "Well, we're gonna have to evacuate the gun line because we're gonna have to clear the tube." So when he said we're gonna have to evacuate the gun line, I tell my soldiers immediately, "Okay, go back 30 clicks." So when I went to get out of the Hauser, he grabbed my shoulder and was like, "Where the fuck you going?" Like he's like, if this gun blows up, it's your gun. So it went from, prep to be downrange to the first deployment to this is like real, right? So he says that to me, and I'm like, oh man, I'm freaking out. So we're in the gun and kind of ending the story. He says, Sergeant Steve at the time, he says, "Hey, I'm gonna open up the tube," and he says, "I don't know what's gonna happen. It could be a slow cook off. The powder could be wet, and it could burn slow and then ignite." He says, "I don't know." And he's an old Vietnam veteran with BCGs on, which is the brown glasses, looking at me, and he's shorter than me. So I'm like, holy, I'm freaking out, man. I'm a kid from the projects, and I'm in this situation, right? As a young gun chief. So he's standing there, and there's 2 windows on both sides of us in a Hauser. Palatins, the same thing if you're familiar with artillery. So as he says it, he says, "I'm going to open up the breech door." And he goes, "Whatever happens is going to happen." So I'm standing there. He's standing next to me. And like I'm having my own personal come to Jesus talk, inside this gun. Like, well, I made it out of the hood getting shot at. So this is, I'm about to die, right? Before I get into combat. So he pulls open the breech door and yanks it open. When he yanks it open, it happened like so fast. You got to hear me out. He pulls the breech door, he yanks it open, jumps out of the window at the pull, yank, lock, jumps out of the Hauser window. I'm in there, and there's nothing but smoke.
Yeah, he didn't give you warning about jumping out.
Yeah, he didn't give me warning about jumping out. He just bails out the window, right? And the back door was there. He jumped, and we have a full bustle rack of like, I don't know, 22 HE rounds in the. So we would have took out a whole grid basically. So he jumps out of the window. When he jumps out of the window, the smoke is so bad in there that I'm like, I must have went to heaven. This is like, I didn't make it, So I'm standing there thinking, I'm dead or something happened. So when I was standing there, he puts his hand, reaches through the back door because he walks around, puts his hand on my leg and was like, "Are you fucking dead yet?" So here all it was the steam from the water inside of the breech
So
door.
he knew what was going to happen. He
Kind of knew, but he was not 100% sure. That's why he bailed on, maybe. But it was such a, and that guy,
it was more for theater.
Yeah, it's more for theater.
Hanging,
yeah, he ended up becoming such a great influencer in my life that helped me become a platoon sergeant, an acting first sergeant later. But this guy was awesome. Yeah,
nice. That's funny. And then, what is one of your greatest hopes for the country you've been willing to give your life for?
I mean, I'm a firm believer in the values of, you know, what the military stands for, and being a person of faith. I'm not a religious person, but I have a strong faith, and understanding that there's no greater love than this, that a man will lay down his life for his friends, right? So when you serve, you're protecting people that you would never meet, putting yourself in harm's way, and in doing so, I think about the flag, right? Just red, white, and blue. It represented diversity, inclusion, period.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something about, seeing, coffins and all of the stuff that you've been through. And you understand the true, when you sing cadence about, we say the Army colors, the colors are red, and what it means, you get it. And so I think, looking at the military, it's really just promoting diversity, inclusion, and understanding, the purpose behind the mission. It's always been people oriented. So that's kind of like, if I had to say for the military and leadership, that kind of adds into there, that leaders are in the role not because of promotion only, and we understand that if you serve, but also you have good leadership that represents, a brotherhood, man, that's for life.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like we were talking a little bit before we went on too. Is just like the inclusion in the military. It was just like the only color that we saw was the color of our uniform. It didn't matter what background you came from. That the bonds, the brotherhoods that we formed, and I guess like what I was asking too, like our hope for our country is to get back to something similar to that, like to get back to September 12th, 2001, when everybody was just an American and we were together and we were,
right,
had each other's six,
yeah,
and now it's just like, seems like, the littlest things are, there's so much division in our country. And I know I just like to get us back to like looking past color, looking past, political parties, looking past, the things that divide us for what brings us together.
Right. I agree.
And then what do you feel we can do to break the stigma of mental health and PTSD?
I mean, one of the big things for me is identity, um, and understanding, me personally, the military is just a component of who you are as a person. A lot of times, if you serve for a number of years and you experienced a lot in the military, for me, it became a part of the dominant thing in my life for identity, right? And I'm a firm believer in whole health counseling. So when I think about the Department of Veteran Affairs, and I think they're transitioning now, um, you know, it should be whole health counseling that includes, the physical health, the mental health, but spiritual health as well. Whatever you decide to worship, it should be a form of whole health counseling. And it includes family, whoever's in your inner circle. I did a TED talk a couple years back as part of a grad program requirement, which was eye opening to me, and that was a part of the TED talk. Was to, talk about what was my vision for the VA, and if you had to implement a program and share it in front of an audience, what would it be? And that was the foundation of my TED talk, was whole health counseling to you know to help a person, right, to save a life, um, to save a mind, to help a mind, but mainly to save a soul. That's the spiritual side of it at the end of the day, right? So I hope I'm answering the question, but I would see for the VA and people identifying to make mental health counseling better,
Hmm.
make it more holistic, because we all experience things in different ways, but we have to be able to speak to that audience, um, and identify. Because I know when I was transitioning home, on one of those deployments, it was very difficult for me. But I remember the one thing my counselor never asked me, which I had to mention, and they were going to send me to a chaplain, was, "Do you need to talk to somebody? Do you need to talk to somebody spiritually?" I had to say, "Man, there's some things that I'm wrestling with. Do you have? Can I talk to you about, like, my faith is divided because I had to do some things downrange that I didn't agree with, and later in life, it was difficult, but I did my job. But it was difficult. I was wrestling with my identity."
Yeah. Yeah. From some of my experience, and I'm glad you mentioned the TED Talk because I definitely wanted to cover some of that. But um, I feel like, not only should there be things available, for the veteran, obviously, you send us away, we got all this money and funding for going off to war, but it seems like there's very little to putting the person back together,
Right.
the holistic approach, but also like the family unit,
Yeah.
the family, our spouses, our kids serve along with us. And I always felt like, when I came home different and acting out and not knowing how to handle my emotions, and, the rage and stuff like that I struggled with, it terrified my kids, and I feel like if there was something that they could have been like a part of, okay, your father's deployed, here's some lessons that you guys can have
Right.
now to prepare, that he might be different. These might be things that you experience when he comes home or something.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like that should be something that should be implemented as well. And like you're talking about with the whole holistic side and the spiritual side, dang, I hate when that I had it and went phew, it flew out. But
We're getting old. That's what
yeah,
does.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. There was something else. Hopefully it'll come back. But just things that preventative things, like or in it, taking care of the whole unit. We're coming back from that. Oh yeah, like I was going to say, the
Right.
funding aspect. One thing I experienced, especially like, it took a while for me through the VA system to find the right therapist.
Right.
I hired and fired so many because it's just like, you need that fit. You need that, there's, unfortunately, it's like, understaffing or whatever. Not everybody served, or not everybody has, their approach isn't,
Yep.
what a veteran needs at that time. And I finally found like the right one, and she was amazing. And she did things like EMDR and stuff like that, which I needed some of that intense emotional stuff to help process things. And then like I finally found the right one and I'm working with her, I'm making progress. And then like during the pandemic, we couldn't meet. So we're doing everything virtual. And then one day she pops on, she's like, I unfortunately got to break this news to you, but I put in my 2 weeks.
Right.
I'm burnt out, overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and it's like they need to do more to take care of the mental health, or take care of the ones that take care of us,
Yeah.
and it's just like, I was just heartbroken. I was like let down once again. I was like, here's the VA system
Yep.
letting me down once again,
Yeah.
and I've since done a lot more outside the VA for me and my family, but it just feel, that's definitely my personal take of things I feel they can improve upon. Um, but you know, as we were talking also earlier, it's like, you continue to serve.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you've been out, I've been retired now for a while, but we just feel we have that calling to continue to try and give back, to do something. You want to talk a little bit more about where your journey took you after the military?
So yeah, in no chronological order, but I've worked in the VA, in the government sector, as an accredited veteran service officer for many years, and so I was able to. It was more like a codependency for me, but it was I was able to help people like myself apply for
Mm.
any federal, state, or county benefit, and I understood because being downrange and in the Middle East and two countries, and I got to see what people were going through. Whether it was combat related or environmental hazard exposure and burn pits and all of that crazy stuff.
Mm.
So that was, I think, my career just kind of elevated from that. That took me to a point of um, really not just taking the training that I've been through, but I took it to another level because I had some experience. Um, and then, I worked in higher education for years, which is a great opportunity, right, to go from the VA sector to go to higher ed. And now instead of helping people to come from ACAPs or TAPs and apply for their disability benefits, most people, our generation, not all, but then I was able to help people go to school and be able to actually utilize those post 9/11 GI Bill benefits and vocational rehabilitation benefits and things like that. So that was like a wonderful blessing, a wonderful transition. And leaving the military, I'm a firm believer, that it's hard to for some to talk about something that they haven't experienced, right? So I myself, while working to stay busy, basically, not to dealing with my own transition, I went back to school. I got my undergrad in 2 years and 11 months and graduated with honors. And then I brick and mortar. And then I went and got my master's, undergrads in business management with a concentration in international studies. And then my master's is actually in psychology with specialization in life coaching and positive psychology. So I use the benefits, myself. So now I'm working in higher ed
Mm.
and I'm advocating not just for the claim side and helping people get connected with mental health services, vet centers, VA, disability, all these benefits. Now I understand the importance of and how hard it is to be a veteran dealing with so much and even trying to go to school. Because most of us, we use the GI Bill benefits and the housing, BAH, was a great way to help offset my income so I can be able to survive.
Yeah.
Right. But I wasn't focused in school. So um, it was a wonderful experience, man, that really catapulted me into, higher ed. And then I eventually worked in healthcare management, senior healthcare management. And that was a great way to use some leadership skills, learn from the military about taking care of people and advocacy, um, to end up, current day working abroad as an expat, um, helping military people to transition out of the service. So it's like God did like a full circle for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of going back on your story too is like, when you became a VSO, that is the first time we crossed paths. And, I remember kind of briefly kind of running into you down at the main prospect office, but we really connected when they opened the new Parma facility here. And I know a lot of the audience don't know what we're talking about, but I do, and that's all that matters. But but we kind of we you helped me out. I was one of the veterans that you've helped. With um, applying for some of these benefits I wasn't aware of, but at the same time, because of your journey, able to share with me when I was down and out, trying to, you know,
Right.
get the spiritual side of it too, because you've always had, you know, um, that spiritual connection. But um, like we've come to find out, during
Yeah.
our conversations that, wow, we were on that same deployment together
Yeah.
in the same base. We had to have crossed paths at some point,
Some
but we didn't
point.
even, even
Yeah.
known. It was just like funny, like, you know, how God does full circle.
Yeah.
And then as time would go on, we members of the same church,
Yeah.
involved with some of the same programs there. And, you know, like I said, we just kind of reconnected while you're home. And, you know, I know, you know, you're living in Italy now, and we can get to that story, but I just wanted to, you know, talk a little bit more about through this journey, like what um, where you're at now, and kind of what led to you know, moving back to Italy and stuff.
So yeah, uh, coming from the environment that I came from, um, what led to me going back to Europe, just I always like to tell people this is an important part of answering that question. My life is a culmination of, and I had to write it down because if you're a veteran, our memories is shot.
Yeah,
But my story is a combination of Antoine Fisher, which, like any movie that any of us been through stuff, especially military, we can't watch those. But Antoine Fisher, The Pursuit of Happiness, and Sanford and Son. Me and my dad, man. And it was rough, man, growing up in that environment. But it did prepare me to be the man that I am today. And I wouldn't take back any of those experiences from being in gangs and selling drugs. Um, you know, Obviously using, right, coping, growing up in the environment. But it made me have grit, and grit is something that you can't learn, through a book. It's something that's experienced. So when I got deployed, my first deployment, second deployment, being in the military, when people were panicking because of pop shots and IEDs and all this crazy stuff, I had lived it as a child. So I was, in a weird way, acclimated to it. But I had come to this awareness that it wasn't about religion and going to church on Sunday, because, I went to church on Sunday when I was younger, and there was a lot of hypocrites. I could be a hypocrite myself. I am. I'm not perfect, but it was one of those moments where I realized that something was keeping me going. I just didn't understand it. It was faith, right? So I was like, man, I made it out of this environment, and later these deployments, but just looking at my life and how I am in the position that I am now, um, it boils down to faith. It boils down to, you know, if we had more time, you know, and just sharing, not even, I would say, military related stories, but stories like you just shared about being in the VA clinic and, you know, doing my job because I'm in a service position, right? I work for the government, and doing the best that I could do to take care of people. But at the same time, when the rubber hit the road, it was like, hey, man, you're going to get through this. I believe. I believe you're going to get through this, man. It wasn't about Bible thumping. It wasn't about, anything that was mystical. It was like, how you know? I got through it. Well, how you get through it? Because God got me through it. I'm not just a shirt and tie, man. I'm a client. This is real.
yeah,
It was my faith, my faith in God, which I identified today, that I'm not ashamed to say is in Jesus Christ. He saved my life, man. Like he really did. He took me and allowed for me to be an influencer, just like you are, Bill.
yeah. Wow, yeah. You know, I was just thinking too, like we look back at, you know, like I mean, I my come to Jesus moment, and my seeds were planted on that deployment. You know, I was raised Catholic. You know, I was altar boy. I did the, you know, I do get in trouble, and then I give my confession to the priest,
Yeah.
and the dry, erase the dry erase board, and then I could start my next week of sinning. You know,
Yep.
till the next one. You know, it just like I had no like connection, no relationship. But I look at all these ups and downs and near death experiences. I mean, basically stupid. I mean, I didn't have nothing like you know, grow up in the environment that you did or anything, but you know, as an addict, as an idiot, you know, we put ourselves in a lot of situations where it's just like, um, the only thing I could think of is that the only reason why I'm still here today speaking about it is because God was there with me. And
Right.
there's no such thing as coincidences. And when
Right.
I finally came home and I got saved and I got sober, I look back and said, man, God was with me the whole time. I was just like pushing him away, or I was turning my back on him. I was running from him, and he was, just like, all right, I'll be here when you tire yourself out and
Right.
get back.
Yeah.
Um, and looking back at that, and it's like how quick, even now as a person of faith, like you said, being hypocrites, I can be such a big hypocrite. I can easily, God should be driving, and I'm always like trying to pickpocket the keys out of his,
Yeah.
from him so I could take over again. Um, but it's just been like, man, such an amazing journey. And I know that, I was kind of like at the beginning of that in the low parts where when he put you in my life, and then the fact that you, like you said, you weren't just a suit and tie, you're a client,
Right.
made it so much easier for me to lean on you too about, well, these guys don't get, I can get discipled by some of these guys if we're just going to talk Jesus, but when I'm
Right.
struggling with this and this, and they hadn't served or hadn't been in, I can't,
Right.
can't come open up to them about some of these horrible things that,
Right.
you know, like you talked about, that crossroads, that tear at your faith
Right.
of the things that, you know, we had to do.
Right.
But I could do that with you. And then, like I said, you ended up being a part of my church.
Yeah.
And I know we touched a little bit. I'm not, one to blow anonymity and stuff like that. But, we both were components of trying to numb a lot of the pain
Yeah.
and a lot of the trauma. Um, and we come together in recovery as well, in a
Yeah.
Christian recovery.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to elaborate a little bit on your journey on that.
Yeah. So we all find different ways to cope. There's gambling addiction, right? There's substance abuse addiction. You fill in the blank with addictions. I like to say isms. I was a product of all of them. Alcoholism, you know, womanizing, whatever. But it was a struggle, but it was a coping mechanism. It was a coping mechanism for me, growing up in an urban environment, where there's a poverty and crime together, and then military, post-military, trying to numb myself down from overthinking,
Mm,
and just trying to be able to keep moving forward as you know I'm standing in the gap for people, but behind closed doors I'm feeling their pain because I have my own pain. And I can understand when you said, VA people get burnt out.
yeah,
When you've been through it, it just it hurts, man. It hurts, watching us struggle when we come home from the military and families destroyed. People have no idea. Like, if you really knew the divorce rate, I mean, people in, we understand, but it's so residual. Like, it's so big. It's like throwing a stone in the water, and the ripple effects is chronic pain, fibromyalgia, sleepless nights, hypervigilance. It's just your whole life changes. So you have to figure out a way, because while you may change, your family is expecting to see the Bill and Randy who they remember, right?
yeah,
So we have to figure out a way. How can I be more friendlier?
yeah, yeah,
How can
yeah,
be more social?
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what you need God to do for you that you can't do for
Right, right,
yourself.
right, right.
You know?
How can I need to drink, and have some drinks in me to calm me down. I need to smoke weed to relax me, to make me get the jitters off if I go to the mall or if I go to a baseball game, so I can even feel comfortable
Yeah,
being in large crowds or events. Even something that I love dearly to me, which is fellowship,
yeah,
right? Even going to church, I remember how hard it was
mm-hmm.
to be in a church that's a couple hundred people, thousand people, and just feeling like I needed to sit in the back of the room. but I
Yeah.
still knew I needed to worship God, right? So yeah, I done all the isms and everything, but there was a point for me in closing that I realized about, going through the struggles of substance abuse and everything, and dealing with being an advocate, understanding that people kind of needed me in that role. I really understood my calling, being, my vocation at that point was that job around the time seeing you. Because the military, I left the military and I was injured, but I just remember that calling and that tug, and it was wearing me out, right? And I'm married, and I'm celebrating 17 years of friendship, two beautiful kids,
Awesome.
and seen a bunch of divorces and Jody situations.
Yeah.
Uh, but I remember, one day I had a Vietnam veteran that was in the bush, and just kind of paraphrasing the story, man. He was just, man, he was going through it, and we was losing non-veterans like World War II veterans at one point when I was there, and Agent Orange was just kicking our tail, which is now, environmental hazard exposed burn pits and everything for us.
Yeah.
But watching these people pass away and then having to file claims for widows was just, oh man, and having the kids come in after I just talked to Joe.
Yeah.
And then it was just unbelievable, man. And I ended up back into a situation of relapsing. Um, and then I got back to that crossroads of, man, what's all this for, man? This is ridiculous, man. I need to get a job, man. I can't handle this no more. I need to come out of the field. Like, I feel like I'm back down range.
Yeah.
And I had a moment in prayer where the most valuable lesson that I learned is God told me, I just felt like it was meant for me to know that you can help people carry their cross. I can come alongside of Bill, I can come alongside of Joe, whoever, but I can't carry the burden.
Mm.
Only God, Jesus, for me, carries the burden of people. I was carrying the burden.
Yeah.
I was, and it caused me to relapse. And once I got to that point of, man, I need to just do what I can do to help people, and just be there and just pray for people. Totally changed my life.
Yeah. I struggled with that, and I still at sometimes do too. Is like setting up those boundaries, because this is like we want to take it on with them. It's just kind of our nature. Like, no, man, we want to help carry their burden with them and stuff. And I allow myself still sometimes to get, where it just emotionally, drains me. And then, and like you said, you struggle with it, led to a relapse and stuff. Where it's just like, okay, I'm here to listen, but, and to help you carry the faith, but that's your burden, man. I got to leave it at, can't take that home with me,
Right.
and it's
Right.
so easy to do. And I'm glad, you mentioned some of the things that we struggle with, chronic pain, the fibromyalgia, and,
Sleep.
sleep, yeah, lack of sleep and everything, because it's like one of the toughest things in a pet peeve that happens with me sometimes. Like I finally, wanted to, I'm like, okay, I can sit here and be in pain on the couch, getting fatter, out of shape, unhealthy, or I can finally, just be in pain doing something to try and better myself.
Right.
So you reach out for help, but sometimes you're in environments where people don't get, you know, what your daily struggle is. And some days are going to be, you're going to have bigger victories than others with what you can give. And the thing that, one of the things that's been a heartbreaker for me a lot is when I'm told, somebody that's trying to encourage me and help coach me, but their approach can sometimes come off like, like, man, you just got to quit being so lazy, or you got to, be more mentally tough and stuff like that. And it's just like, dude, it took everything I had in my mind just to show up today,
Yeah,
to get myself out of bed and show up here. What happens after that's a bonus,
right?
So can you please try and, like, it's
Right.
not laziness. It's not, and it's just like, you're already in, and like we talked about before we went on, that struggle with that voice in my head. I know, when I focus my identity in Christ and who I am, in Jesus, it's it's not just all my military accolades, my what I've done in the academics or stuff like that.
Right.
It's so much greater.
Right.
And but that the enemy in my head is always just telling me, man, that was the highlight. You're nothing but
Yep.
you're a beat up broken down piece of crap now.
Right.
So I already struggle with that. I don't need somebody telling me that's supposed to be helping me. You're lazy or
Yeah.
it hurts, man. And I just wish people understood what our daily battles are like, and to have the accomplishment that we have today. It's like now we're not numbing with. We're not
Right.
going to the go-tos, that we used to. Now we're trying to do this, you know, we're asking, Christ to, strengthen us, and because we can't do this ourselves.
And just like the Bible says, faith without works is dead, right? So, this isn't, I know for me, and I hear the same thing from you, it's a daily battle, right? Because the voices, we like to call them in higher ed and psychology, the chattering monkey,
Yeah.
just constantly,
Yeah.
right? It's negative self-talk. It's just trying to tell you like that was the highlight of your life, and you're getting older now, and yeah, I'm not saying that having faith alone is all you need. You still got to put some work in, right? Skin in the game.
Yeah.
And skin in the game for us now is to some degree fitness, right? So we do kickboxing. I'm a good person with like CrossFit and working out and stuff like that. Right, I do a lot of cycling. Riding a bike has been so much better for me as I'm getting older and easier on the knees from all of the miles of running and humping packs. And so it's just, physical fitness is, when you feel good, it's like, your thought process, because you got a little bit more confidence, right? So now you're kind of feeling better about yourself. And it's like a road to recovery that's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you can't get so fixed on fitness, because then that could become an idol. Because then you miss a day of fitness and it could trigger a relapse just from not working out. And you're like, dude, at least I can get up and get off the couch. And then you put expectations on yourself, and it's like, no, you stay healthy. You're not trying to become a bodybuilder and all that kind of stuff. You're just trying to maintain, because living with chronic pain, fibromyalgia, if you're suffering with PTSD or depression or whatever, it's like you said, just to get up. And God forbid, you're living in Ohio and the weather's like all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get a rainy day or a snowy day, and you that's a trigger. That'll put you right back into a state of depression, or just you're overthinking, and because now you're stuck in the house. COVID was terrible for many of veterans, and the community isolated us from just shop talking with each other. But I'm in agreement with you. I mean, I think that you have to kind of look at your identity, military, make it bigger, make your shot group just a little bit bigger. And I'm a firm believer in faith, but having some kind of foundation for you is spiritual. If it's meditating, whatever. But working out, and we always look at those pictures, lastly, of what we look like in uniform, and we all give each other crap about, bro, I can never fit in that old. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you work out so that hey man, God is not finished with me yet. There's still work I can do to do what you're doing right now, and it's iron sharpens iron, right? Different mothers, same family.
No, amen. Yeah, I'm glad you said that too. It's like, that it can't become an idol either. It's just like,
right.
I started, one of the things that I started enjoying doing is learning jujitsu, and it was, and it still is, something that I enjoy when I'm able to go do it, because you talk about fibromyalgia and you got another person's body on you, and that it's not the most comfortable outfit you wear and stuff while you're doing it.
Right.
But, I found myself during the pandemic. It was like when that opened up, it was one of the only things I could go do for fellowship.
Right.
And I was doing it, every day of the week for a while, and it even became my church on Sundays.
Right.
And I felt myself burning myself out. And then this winter was probably one of our roughest winters here in Cleveland that we had in a long time. We've kind of had mild ones. This one got like really cold, and that triggered and flared up some of my fibro. So it's like I haven't had like a good steady, like I said, I was going like 5-6 days a week, doing jujitsu for a while before winter came, and I was progressing and I was feeling all right. But then I was like, I felt like, it was burning me out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the winter came, and then I haven't had, I'm lucky to get 3 days a week. But then I think that's also God telling me, like, dude, you need to just slow down. And you also need to come back to me on Sundays,
Right.
Church has been back open. You're not streaming anymore. People are getting back together. And this past Saturday was actually when we were doing, when our group was doing the tomb, guarding the tomb for our for Easter Sunday. The only break I took that day was to go to the 5 o'clock service, and that was my first time doing service in over a year. Actually attending, and I felt that God was convicting me. He's like, you still need to be spiritually fed, man. It's not just about what you're doing physically,
right.
What you're pouring into,
right.
And then, Pastor Jonathan had a thing where it's just like, even if you're new, make that commitment. You walk through the door, which was really cool. But he's like, even if you if you haven't been here in a while, and I was like, man, I felt that calling. I walked through the door. I'm like, man, I got to recommit. That I need to be back on Sundays. I need to, jujitsu can't be my new idol. These things can't be my, so it's like finding that balance. Balance again. And it's been the journey that I've been on. And like, listening to my body, like, hey man, you're not, in your 20s anymore either,
Right.
You're doing what you can and enjoy it. Don't make it a burden. Don't make it a job.
Right.
Don't make it an idol.
Yeah.
Because when it becomes an idol, it becomes a burden. It becomes a job. It becomes like, like you said, I feel like I, have to be there all the time. And when I'm not, then I'm beating myself up and overthinking. And it's like, no, man, today's the day off. It's cool.
Yep.
Enjoy the day off.
Yep. Yes, that's facts, man. I see a lot of us veterans either overwork. We come home and we workaholics.
Yeah.
Some people are, me, schoolaholic. That was a way to drawn out, just stay busy. Mm-hmm. Never was sleeping, just school, work, 60 hours. Or fitness, you just tough mothers, 5K, jiu-jitsu, cycling. I never thought I would buy a bike that's like, you start getting to cycling, it's like really expensive. And now I'm into treks and Fujis and aerial bars. We riding a century ride that's the goal, if you understand about biking. And now that's kind of where I am is but I use it as fellowship. I hang out with other veterans, and some of them don't believe in anything and some of us have a faith, but we meet and we ride. We're actually riding this Saturday through I think we're going to start near Valley View, which is a great park, and then the trails, and we're going to ride through the flats of Cleveland, which is about 30 miles.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, there's it's as long as you're not isolating, because that's the wrong tunnel a lot of us seem to go towards. We isolate, and then when we're stuck, if we're the only one, we can't think our way through a thinking problem, by ourselves. So it's like that's why, fellowship can be good, balance, but I like when you're trying to grow, like I know. With me, it's like I just didn't want to just be sober from drugs and alcohol. I could because when I was a dry drunk, it was just like you still couldn't really tell the difference what kind of man I was, just because I wasn't drinking and using. So it's like what helps me grow, not just I got the group for jiu-jitsu to try and grow physically, but then I got my faith group to grow spiritually and to help me grow as a man, as a father. And and so forth. So it's always good to keep, like you said, those circles.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think the circle metaphor for me is huge, right? Because you think about your circle, right? In military, we say shot group, your circle of trust, right? So you think about maybe you have. I had to start identifying like who's in my circle, right? So first it was, who's my top 3 people? If you're married, it's your wife, hopefully.
You're sleeping on the couch.
Right. Your children, right? But we know how children, because we've been a child, we can really burn parents, right? Yeah. But who's in your circle, your top 3? And out of the 3, who's your one? That one person that you know has your 6, right? And then you go outside your circle, and then you go a little bit bigger, and then so if we're already looking at 3, we're going 1, 3, and then we're looking at who's the other 8 people, right? Who's the other people, if you want to use numbers or more? Who's the other 8 people that they're associates, but maybe not a close friend? And then within that 8 people, there's always 1 or 2 people that's a Jody, right? Or there's just 1 or 2 people that's gonna, in their own way, we're all broken, but they're gonna backstab you.
Yeah.
Everybody, we all get hurt by people, so we have to really kind of even start to change expectation management and how we don't have to set high expectations just because, we're fairly decent people. Everybody's not going to be the same way. We can look at, we could see the same bottle of water on the table, and some people will say the bottle is half full or more than half full, and some people will look at this bottle and say it's not full because there's a gap right there, so there's just 90% full, right? Yeah. It's all about perspective, right? So you got to change your perspective, and as you look at your shot group, your circle, for me, I had to go and say who's in the center of my circle, because like you said, you can't outthink yourself. So if I'm in the middle and I didn't blew it, I'm just being honest. I didn't blew it. In Christianity, we say I was Saul, right? I church, all that. That sounds like it's weird. It's just different. And I didn't blew it. And then if I'm in the center of my circle and then I'm living today, still trying to curve these addictions and all of the stuff that I'm dealing with and mental health and physical, I'm a fail. So it has to be something other than me that can keep me going. So in the center of my circle, I got a little piece of paper here for remarks, is a cross. Yeah. Jesus is on the chair. Like Bill said, every now and then I'm trying to get in his pocket. I'm being the right seat rider. He left seat. He's trying to teach me things and I'm trying to take control. But every time I try to take control, I crash.
Yeah.
So I just, I have to keep reminding myself in faith, God's in control, man. You're a soldier.
Yeah.
He's brass.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned the 3, and that kind of goes to like some of the questions I normally ask guests that I have on. Usually I speak with a lot of musicians, as you know, and people in the music thing. So I always have a music question, but, who are some of your top 3 musical artists?
For me, growing up again in, the environment that I was growing up in, for me, Tupac was like huge. I'm just going to be real. He was a community activist. He really was like a voice for us, people growing up in the dark. And, I know he represented my life at that time, but he had a platform that I can only dream of achieving. He was really influential. Some of his music just carried me through. There's another artist, group, Linkin Park. That was kind of like military. So you got early military. Linkin Park was, kicking the door. Hardcore, you moving.
Yeah.
And then they partnered with Jay-Z, which I love even more, right? So then that was just like awesome. But Linkin Park was just really, you had a group of guys, like a band of brothers, and that's what we were in the military. And their music was just all about the struggle, but it was also about keep moving forward, right? Sometimes you try so hard, come so far, in the end, it don't even matter, right? You didn't blew it, right? And then lastly, I'm a big Coldplay person now. I'm on the other side now, per se, and I still got a long way to go up the mountain. I mean, I'm the least of all people, but it's more about the journey, man. It's not the destination. I understand that now. So for me, Coldplay is. I'm looking forward to going to a Coldplay concert in Europe,
Nice.
and just kind of spending some time in that vibe that they give off. I feel my heart.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
yeah.
So speaking of the vibes and stuff, is there a particular song that you feel has inspired you in life? And it doesn't have to be Coldplay, but like a song that's kind of like in your playlist that's a go-to when you need that uplift.
Um, there's like not one particular song. It's like if somebody says, "What's your favorite Bible verse?" and you're like, "I like," but this one is all conditional, right?
Yeah.
But on the gospel side, there's a song called "I Never Would Have Made It Without You," right? And it talks about you saw the best in me, even when I didn't see the best in myself,
Mm.
um, which is Marvin Sapp. It's a beautiful gospel songs about just knowing where you came from, not forgetting. But then when I'm more or less like I'm in the suck,
Yeah.
work, life, physically, I'm trying to get out of the suck. Um, you know, I'm probably more or less I'm gonna turn to. I'm probably now. I'm probably gonna turn to a Coldplay. I want to say Linkin Park, to be honest. But Linkin Park, and I could be working out and totally forget.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd take you a different kind of play. So Coldplay now, if I'm really kind of like, I have to, when you listen to Yellow, Linkin Park, right? Paradise. I use that to say, don't focus on how you feel. Feelings are indicators, not dictators.
Mm.
Focus on the bigger picture, right? It all starts in the mind. Where thoughts go, energy flows.
Yeah.
So that's how I use Coldplay, Yellow or Paradise or many of their songs to just say, or feel my heart and see beneath my skin. You make me feel alive again. So I use that as a way to say, what makes me come alive? Man, it's about, for me, service for God, helping vets. I mean, those are the songs.
Nice. And then, who are three people who've inspired you, or you can credit for making you the person you are today?
Number one, obviously, and this is, I'm not trying to sound like cliche-ish, but Jesus, right? My favorite Jesus, the man of God. Reason why, in short, I've never seen anyone who was a king that humbled himself enough to death, right? You hear about presidents, everybody has an agenda. What's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
His life is the only story that I've ever read that it wasn't about him at all. It was about us. Greater love than this, right? And it says, very seldom will a righteous man die for another person, good person. But while we were still sinners, Christ died for us.
Mm.
Like, I feel that because I know the stuff that either military I done that I'm ashamed of talking about or growing up, but it's like that's big for me, right? Second person in my life that's been influential for me is my grandmother, right? My grandmother was huge, grew up, doing, civil rights movement. She raised foster kids. She was what we would call a Medea, if you understand what a Medea is, right? She was like a Medea, to the point of, if you ever watched the movie, she was tough like that. And but she always had foster kids. She would open up her homes to people. But I was at a low moment in my life, and my grandmother had said something to me that I carried. And she said to me one time, I was at a low moment, and part of me being a low moment was, abandonment. My mom abandoned me when I was younger, so I stayed in foster cares and detention homes. But my grandmother told me, and I was able to get into the Cleveland School of Science. I had always intellect, but she told me as I was messing up early teenage, she says, I know you don't feel love. And she says, but you were created for a purpose. And she says, if you don't do this for you, do it for grandmother.
Mm.
She said it just like that. That was the main part. If you don't do, I was sitting in her house on the steps before she went home. And I was in a detention home when she died, so I didn't even get to see her. But she says, if you do it, if you don't do it for yourself, continue in life, do it for grandmother, right? So I remember when I walked across the stage to get my undergraduate degree, it was a man, it had to be like a couple thousand people, right? All I kept thinking was, I did it for you. I did it. You know what I mean? I followed through. I'm being a man of integrity, man. I did it. Like David, I did it. No matter what I was going through, I did it, right? So then when I walked across for my graduate degree, I did it for every veteran I lost, for every soldier that was underneath my care that either didn't make it home or came home and committed suicide. I did it for all the ones that didn't go to college. I did it for all the people that was in the projects like me that didn't have the opportunity or, didn't want to take that leap of faith and join the military. And I did it for them, So my grandmother was those words. I share them with my children.
Mm.
And the third most influential person in my life, and I want to throw in a little small, it's not a small, but a fourth one, but the third most influential person in my life is my wife. Like, I met my wife when I was stationed in Vicenza, Italy. And she was raised Roman Catholic because she's Italian. And um, and I remember when I met her, she used to look at me and she used to go, "You're different. We got our berets on. We think we hot stuff, right? You airborne, all this." And she says, "You're different, though." And I used to read my little New Testament. I had in my back pocket in my uniform. That's when we had the polished boots. Just want to throw that out there because I was old school. When we had if you Army, we had the old uh, pistol belts and butt packs and infantry butt packs. So she was watching me, and I wasn't, I didn't know a lot about organized religion, and she just was watching me and watching me. And then one day, this is before we even thought about marriage, we were just kind of dating, and she says, "I want what you have." One day she came in to me and said, after a while, she was watching me. She says, "I want what you have." And I said, "What do I, I come from, and she says, "No, you just got this, something's in you that's different than what I've seen." And I've watched her go from telling me that, God don't talk to you and different things. You go through a priest and confession, and I said, "No, you can go just Jesus Christ. You can, hey, I'm broken, bro." And she and I watched her, like, if you plant a seed and you see the seed grow into this beautiful, I'm not married to the same person, man. She's like totally different. And it's the love that she has now for people is different. And she inspires me, man, after being a person that was, maternally abandoned, and then watching her, how she treats my children. And just like you said, man, our families go through stuff that it would be a whole nother TED talk. Like, we would have to just spend that's a whole conversations in itself, right? Yeah. So just having her to just see my struggle and be there, and me putting my foot in my mouth a million times and doing dumb stuff, right? When you mess up and you relapsing and struggling, she's been a strong pillar in my life. So, and it's not last but not least, but Bill, you've been an influencer in my life, right? So I look at your life, and the old saying is, spiritually is iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, right? In the military, we say uh, different mothers, same family, or I got your six, right? Watching you go through what you've been through, because I remember when you were at a low point in your life when we first met, to the different struggles that you've been through over the last, I don't know, I think that was probably about 10 years now ago, 15.
But yeah, like 2009, 2010.
Right. So watching your struggles, and just having that level of influence, because that's huge to me as influencers. Just watching you wear your heart on your sleeve, when you share it's like you could tell if you understand people and emotional intelligence, and you can understand where you are. And you were frail, but at the same time you were transparent. A lot of people feel a certain way about a certain people group, but they don't share it.
Yeah.
Right? You were open about things that you were feeling and what you were going through, and I was watching your salvation, right? Your journey. And I'm so grateful that you allow for me to be a part of your life, man. But watching that, man, and then just seeing you work out, every now and then I skim across social media, and you posting your journey of fitness and with your children, and just everything, man, the goods and the bads, right? You've been transparent. That's the point, is your transparency and your ability to share your faith, right? Your faith, not box religion.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going through. This is my faith. And it's not about religion, going to church only on Sunday. That's fellowship, right? We're the church, not the building.
Yeah.
You sharing your faith, man, kind of encouraged me to say, man, I need to be me. Kid from the projects, man. I just need to I just need to be the guy that God created. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit better now because of my education and all the high speed stuff. But at the end of the day, your journey, your story, the testimony now is what we're doing now. And we were going to do this TED talk a while ago, and like you said, I so happened to come by a divine appointment.
Yeah.
And now you're like, hey, bro, you in town for a little while before you go back to Italy? Do you want to? And that's you've influenced me to say, just keep fighting a good fight, man.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, if you weren't who you were or are, I mean, and I'm thankful to God that you are, I might not have had somebody to bear some of that stuff to, I mean, you're the person that I thought of, like, man, I don't like where this is headed, and I need to talk to somebody that gets it and walk me through it. So I'm grateful to God for you and our relationship and you being available. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but what would you want your legacy to be when you're no longer with us?
So, I'm always thinking about my family, my wife and children, right? And with my wife and children, I want to leave a faith legacy. You know, you live in faith. You may not have to see all the pieces, but you got to take a step. Don't get stuck. Complacency kills in a battlefield. Right? Keep moving forward. So I want to be able to leave a legacy with my family with faith, and then a legacy with my family financial legacy. What are ways that I can prepare them, as I didn't have the same resources, to where maybe the military doesn't have to be that go-to option, that they can do well in school and be able to uh, go to college, offer their academics, right? And help from GI Bill benefits, right? And things like that, or, our VA benefits. But, they don't have to join the military. So that's, I want to leave a financial legacy. Those are the two main for my family. For people in general, what do I want to leave behind? I want people to say, that guy, he was, man, if the tracks was here, he came from way on the other side of the tracks, right? Some people say, I come from the other side of the track. I'm over here, right? I want people to say, man, you know what? He was ate up. He had a lot, bro, to deal with, but he beat salt, right? He didn't let his circumstances cause him to blame his behavior. Well, I'm acting this way because of social oppression and racism. No, I'm no, man. You know, this guy really, he overcame a lot, man. And in the midst of him overcoming, he found himself. And in finding himself, he really wanted to make a difference in people's lives. So where he knew that people were hurting because he was hurting. And my legacy, I want people is to say, I want what you have. I want what you have, man. I want to. What's the secret in the sauce? It's Christ, man. It's in there.
Yeah, man. Well, I know you definitely, have left a, you know, like I said, if you weren't who you are and weren't available, I mean, you've helped me so much with so many um, dark times, and there's always going to be a lasting legacy to leave with me. Before we get ready to wrap up, um, any message that you have for our brothers and sisters currently serving overseas?
Yeah, I would say, and I wrote down, this one, you know, just realize the things that we've been through. Sometimes, failed leadership in the military is the primary reason most of us get out, in my experience. And just multiple deployments, I was stop loss ones, just all of the stuff that we go through, right? And recruiters lying to us in the beginning, some of us just realize what you think is happening for your harm could actually be happening for your good. It could actually be leading you into the life that you were meant to live, but this is a part of your journey, the military or bad experiences. So, just keep moving forward, just like they teach us, adapt and overcome, right? Um, Communicate, keep moving forward, right? And then, I tie that into paying it forward. When you come out of a hole, just like you do left seat ride, right seat ride is what we say, whether you IMTOing a unit out and you coming in, regardless. In the military, those are acronyms that we use, but basically non-military, pay it forward. Don't forget your fellow man, your fellow sister, your that family. There's a lot of people are fighting battles behind closed doors that you'll never know about. But if you don't make yourself available, just because you make it out of the hole doesn't mean you move beyond how you don't forget where you came from, but reach reach back. Help, be willing to help someone, man. You may be the person that talks one of us off the ledge from your experience in the military, and you'll never know. But that person help one vet, you didn't help the family because you had a mom, a brother, a sister, somebody's connected to this veteran, other veterans. So if you served in the military, realize that those experiences, when you come home and you working for that company and doing things, help that veteran that's coming to that company get acclimated in. Help that student that's coming in shaking like a leaf, being in a non-military environment, trying to get an education to feel comfortable. Help that Christian brother that's struggling with his identity and his faith to understand that God allowed for those to be experiences to shape him for a testimony. Pay it forward. That's what I would say for military.
Nice, nice. I know you had a few things written down, but did we cover most of them?
Yeah, the biggest was just in closing for me is I think identity, just kind of circling back around to identity. Um, just realize that I did when I did my TED talk. One of the subjects was who are you? I asked the crowd, this crowd of people, have you ever seen a TED? And then I said, who are you pretending to be? And you always start with some kind of opening remark, and I went around. I'm a mom. I'm a dad. I'm a veteran. Um, hey, I love the Lord. I'm a Christian. I said, that's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what you do. That's like your role. But who are you really? Most people don't identify with who they are because it's hard to live within your own skin and really come to a self-awareness, self-effacing awareness, right? But it's about identity, just understanding that yes, we served in the military. Yes, we were a musician. But the hardest thing that I've noticed when I was counseling, I life coach people now, is retirement age. Now you're getting older, in some places, age discrimination, all these different things, your health. and you can't go do what you were doing. You can't be that roadie on the band helping people because your body won't let you do it. No, whatever you're
Yeah,
doing,
yeah,
music,
yeah.
right? But then now you feel like, man, I done lost my sense of identity. I've lost who I am because that was all I know. And it's like, no, man, that's just a part of you. That was a stepping stone. So that's what I really wanted to close out with this. Just who are you, and who are you pretending to be? I mean, do you really know? Not what you do. Do you really know who you are? And if you do, it'll carry you beyond this life and the life you leave behind.
Awesome, man. Good stuff, brother. I appreciate. I'm glad we were able to get to do this. And you know, we talked about the TED Talk a couple times. Like where if people wanted to go check it out, is it available? And what the title is and
So
all
I
that
have
stuff.
to. I'll post it on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
I'm old now,
yeah,
and I'll send you the information so maybe you can repost it in the remarks for this.
yeah.
Um,
Okay,
but I know at one point when they recorded it for the school because it was part of my, I guess you say capstone, but in grad school they call it something else. But they had recorded it, and Sam Betty from Grace Church had to do this awesome video for me
oh, nice.
about military. But
Yeah.
he recorded it, so I can get it from Grace, or I can get it. They put it on something called not Vimeo, but it's some kind of.
Vimeo.
There you go.
All right.
So
Yeah.
I got to get the link for Vimeo
Okay.
and then send it to you. So yeah,
Nice.
I'll make sure that you guys you kind of get it.
Yeah, I'd like to share that with the audience and stuff too, and watch it for myself as well. But man, Randy, I'm glad we were able to. I'm glad God does what God does, and we are able to connect while you're here in the States and able to do this. And I'm grateful for your friendship and your brotherhood. And man, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. Big shout out to my other military left. Galvanize, the men group, rock on, man. Thank you for giving me a warm welcome. Last Friday, it was a moment for me being separated from family that kind of emotionally made me feel like I was back in the military away from my wife, but now my kids here. But big shout out to Galvanize, a band of brothers, man, good men coming together, man. Transparency, different spectrums of life, different jobs, occupations. Um, you know, big shout out to the group leaders. Definitely strong leadership that's there that you feel, and big advocate for galvanizing the group. And if you're going through something, you know, definitely talk to Bill to get you plugged in. Where if it's not the VA, there's some support systems with people who care.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen, man. Thank you again.
Yeah.